What is holding your business back from scaling? There are typically four types of business constraints. And in this episode of Business Builders, we're going to break down for you what those business constraints are so you understand not only what they are, but how to attack them, how to prioritize, and most importantly, how to assess what they are, where they are, and then determine which ones are the most important. Because the truth is, there's never just one constraint in your business, there's always multiple. And the key to playing the game of business, it's more like chess, less like checkers, is to identify how to prioritize which constraints you are fixing first and how quickly you can fix them. What's the impact of fixing those business constraints? We've worked with thousands of businesses, and every single business has constraints. There are friction points, especially if you think that your business is running great and there are no friction points. That is a clear indicator that you simply don't know what they are, not that they don't exist. So we're going to dive into what those are. And the goal here is to help you as a business owner identify your primary blind spots within one of your four core business functions. Now, a lot of times you'll hear business coaches talk about five core business functions. We break it down into four, and here's why. And this is important for what we're going to talk about in this training. Most people look at business as marketing. That's one. Sales. That's two. Finance, then you have operations, then you have people, and then accounting is somewhere behind finance. That is what is typical, and that's why a lot of businesses get stuck, because they don't have their business structured in a way where they understand how the different departments work together. So while marketing and sales might be two different teams, we treat them as one, or even two different departments, we treat them as one function. Marketing feeds sales, sales capitalizes on the efforts of marketing. So we treat them as left hand, right hand. They work together. We look at them as one function, two sides of the same function. They both exist to generate revenue and nurture clients, take care of clients. Then you have finance and accounting. Finance is how you look forward, where you're going. Accounting is looking backwards to understand where you've been, analyze the data so that on the finance side, you can forecast and predict where you're going and create the strategy of how to get there. Then you've got your operations, obviously, and then your people development and leadership. We break it down into those four functions because it aligns all of those teams so they work together in the most cohesive way. And when you understand how these work together, you understand how it affects your growth. And so the conversation we're going to have is going to be framed around what we call the four phases of business growth. These are four phases that every single business that has ever existed has gone through, is going through, will go through. And we break it down into this really simple framework of foundation, fortification, foresight, and fortune to help you understand where your business is at. And really, it's a framework that helps you identify where your focus should be in terms of growing your business. So I want to set the stage here for you real quick. In your business, like I said earlier, you always have a constraint. We've seen businesses where once we dig in, the first thing we do is we look at the finances. We look at the data to tell us the story of how the business is functioning. What's the health of the business? And 100% of the time, we're able to identify things that the business owners weren't seeing. We're able to confirm things that they were seeing. And not only increase revenue, increase profit, but reduce cost. That's where we're looking to stabilize the business. That's part of what we call the foundation phase, where we want to stabilize the business. And then we start looking to we look at marketing and sales, we look at operations and people, and we start identifying where can we optimize the business, increase performance, increase efficiency, increase profitability even more. Then we move on to leveraging more of the data to start predicting where the business is going and where it needs to go at least 6 months out. So you can't fix what you don't see. And in this training is to help you identify what you may not be seeing, or at the very least, where to look in your business, because the thing that kills your business is usually the thing that you're not paying attention to because you don't see it. You don't know it's there. It's like a cancer growing in your business. And if you realize that it's there, what it is, too late, it could have spread through the entire business. That sounds really morbid, but that's just a reality of how business works. We've seen businesses where they have a lack of process, a lack of transparency, and there's a constraint where you have one key person, and then that person gets sick, they're out of the business, they leave, whatever happens. Now that everything they carried falls apart. You have a profit leak. You have someone who is stealing money from the business. We've worked with businesses where 3, 4 years, maybe even longer, someone was taking money from them, but because they didn't have the visibility into the business, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars later before they even realized it. And who knows how much money, additional profit was lost, and how much rebuilding they had to do to fix that. So these are blind spots that hold you back the most, and we're going to pull back the curtain and help you uncover yours. Because here's the truth when you look at constraints in a business. The constraints aren't a sign of failure. I want to make sure that's clear. If you have constraints, it is not a sign of failure. They're actually a sign that your business is growing. But the faster you see them, the faster you can fix them, the faster you can scale. So constraints are like growing pains. They are a good sign that something is happening in your business, because the constraint happens when the growth of your business and the weight of that is putting pressure on the business and the structure that you've built, the processes, and now it's time to improve that so you can grow. So let me walk you through a little more detail on what the four functions are so it's really clear. The four core business functions, as we look at it, you've got your marketing and sales. Marketing and sales is for creating demand, turning attention into dollars, turning that demand into dollars, demand for your product, for your services. Then you have your operations. That's where the goal is to deliver consistently and efficiently your product, your service to your customers, to your clients. Finance and accounting. If you want to think of it as a simple analogy, you're driving a car, you have your windshield and you have your rearview mirror. Finance is the windshield. We're looking forward. Where are we going? We're navigating. Accounting is looking in the rear view. Where have we been? How did we get to where we are? So we can leverage that data and information to make better decisions as we forecast and look forward. And then people and leadership, we don't just look at HR, but we refer to it as people and leadership, because you don't want a Toby Flenderson running your HR. You don't want the high school hall monitor who's just telling on everyone. You want to have what Kirk does, who is our chief of people, strategic HR, where not only are you doing all of the HR compliance things, the processes, onboarding, hiring, firing, but you're actually developing people and making it easy for them to be successful by providing them everything needed. And you have a plan, a curriculum to train those people and develop leaders, because you need leaders in order to grow your team, because your team grows your business. So building the right team and leading them really well. 4 phases I touched on already. So let's dive into. I just want to go to people first, and Kirk's gonna come up and talk us through that, because when we look at a business and we build the model, the way that we structure departments, we put people in the center. That is the center of your business. All constraints in your business can be tracked back to people, because somebody either creates the constraint or is responsible for fixing it. So we always want to start with people and then expand from there. So we'll use that to lay the foundation. So Kirk, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah. So with people, um, again, a lot of times what we find is that we, in essence, try to throw people at our problems, and so uh, people are not going to fix your problems. If you don't know where the bottleneck is, it's probably with you. So leading into that, building that foundation of what is it that you expect out of your people starts with what did you expect out of yourself. And so looking at that, we want to ensure that you've built out a framework for what your role, or in many cases your roles, are in the business. So if you're looking to bring on additional headcount, uh, first of all, it starts with you, maybe you and a family member, and then bringing on that first team member. It's identifying where your time is either best spent or least valuable. And so looking at that, you start to develop what are those objectives. So looking at the role that you're looking to create, what does this next position need to deliver to your organization in order for it to be valuable? And then we look at what is what are the competencies that you've brought into the business and into that current role, whether it's on the operations side or marketing or sales or um, you know, whatever that might look like. What are the competencies that you either had coming in or you needed to grow? And then what is it that position will need to be experienced in to be able to deliver that? So again, you don't want to hire somebody, and I've seen this. Oh man, I'll say hundreds, but probably thousands of times where an individual will hire a person and then create themselves a second job of becoming a manager of the person instead of transferring that role to somebody else and then coaching them along the way. But in essence, what we want to do is just create that role, make it very clear, but also document that in a place that somebody can see it. We generally will refer to that as a job description, but in essence, a framework for what this person needs to do, what they need to deliver, and then what are the skill sets that they need to have to be able to deliver those things, and then transfer that role to the next person. We refer to that as creating the next generation. Sometimes that is a one-to-one transfer. Sometimes that's a 1 to 5. We're working with a business owner right now that he, in essence, over the last 2 years, has taken his role and transferred that into 5 different roles, but that's part of the scaling process. So, what additional questions do you have, AJ, that I could answer and breathe life into for that? Oh, can't hear you.
There we go. Had myself muted. When we look at people, what are the most common um, overlooked constraints specific to people that business owners often miss?
Right off the gate, you you don't actually know what you're looking for, so you don't know when you see it or when you don't see it. So, um, taking that step back in reflection and saying, what did I do when I was in the, let's just use the sales role? What was it that I did when I was in the sales role? It brings to mind a company that we're working with right now where he is the best salesperson, the best operations person, the best marketer, and he's trying desperately to transfer out of the sales role, but he doesn't know what he's looking for. And so I would say the first barrier of restraint is figuring out what it is that made you successful in this role and what's going to make the next person successful in that role. So knowing what you're looking for, working from a foundation of, and that this, I hesitate to say it because it sounds so silly, but even when I started my first company years ago, as a solopreneur, I had a mission, vision, and core values that I had for my organization before welcoming hundreds of people into what would become a business. As a solopreneur, I had a clear mission, vision, and core values. And so it allowed me to identify who's going to be a great team member, who's going to be a great vendor, and who's going to be a great partner. And I would say that that was the foundational piece that allowed me to grow that business pretty quickly, um, and without a lot of steps back. But that wasn't because it was my first step up. It was learning from other people's struggles, other business owners that have been there, done that, and got the scars to show me. And quite frankly, I booked as many meetings with those business owners that I could, that had the scars, and they were willing to show me.
I like that you brought the mission, vision, values. So that was the next place I was going to go with the question, because people, you touched on it. you not only use the mission, vision, core values to dictate how you evaluated people coming into your previous business, but also vendors. Um, One of the things that we do with every client, for those of you watching, is we always do an exercise where we create the mission, vision, core values. Um, Kirk, real quick, some like maybe two, three things on how to create your how to create your mission, vision, core values, or just why it's so important. Like, what should that be? Because a lot of um, I've read a lot of mission statements, a lot of core values. So let's just go with the core values because that's the one that I see gets messed up the most. How many should we have? What's the thought process behind identifying what those are so that everyone can leave watching this video and know how to attack it the right way.
Yeah. So I'll start with this because you're the marketer. I'll start with this because most business owners and most businesses, I won't even cancel out the businesses because I see this with small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and Fortune 500 businesses. But they confuse values with core values. So values is something on the marketing side of the house where these are these are qualities that you look at forward facing to your customer. So we're honest, we're reliable, we're on time, we deliver with care. Those are values. And those are great. And they have an audience and they have a place in your business. Core values are core or they're central to your business. And these are behaviors necessary to be successful inside of your business. So when we look at core values, we're looking to assess not only our team members of what they can and won't display inside of our business, but we use these core values as a barometer of their success or their ability to be successful inside of the business. To the number of them, I've seen everything from three to an exhaustive list. What I would recommend is having 5 to 8 core values, and these are core values that are distilled from a larger list of core values. Meaning, uh, I'll give you an example for a client that we're working with right now. We have about 14 or 15. I'll call them values right now. Our goal by the end of this week is to distill that down into 7 to 8. I would recommend that we have 5 to 8 core values. And these are core values that we're going to pressure test inside of the business. So as a business owner, a key stakeholder in the business, you need to ask yourself this question. With these core values, with these behaviors, am I willing to hire or not hire somebody because of this? Am I willing to reward or not reward somebody because of the lack of in my business? Am I willing to fire this person because of or lack thereof this core value? So we're pressure testing this and making it a decision making tool. So if I've got a team member that is displaying this, I'm going to reward them because they're displaying this core value. Our, our first core value is embolden. Our last core value, results driven. And so I need to be able to pressure test these core values and saying, am I willing to hire somebody or not hire somebody because they display this or because they don't display this? Am I willing to reward them in a performance uh, performance assessment at the end of the year? Am I going to reward them because they displayed these 5 to 8 core values in my business? Or because of the lack thereof in displaying these core behaviors to what's successful in my business, am I willing to remove them from my environment? A lot of times we find that uh, a business has an environment or a culture that the business owner doesn't like or enjoy, and the reality is you have an opportunity to create this by design. A lot of times it's designed by default. And what I mean by that is you end up in a business that you don't enjoy, and you have people around you that you don't necessarily enjoy working alongside. You don't enjoy pursuing that vision that you cast or didn't cast. Maybe it only lives in your head. So to sum it all up, core values are the behaviors necessary to be successful in your business, and people will, in essence, come into your business because of those, or exit your business because of those, or a lack thereof.
Love it. So hopefully that gives you a better understanding. We're going to link, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's linked in the description to an assessment that you can download. You can walk through as an exercise to identify where your constraints are as a helpful tool. And we start with people because everything in your business branches from your people. It's an extension of your people. And not having those core values, you're not hiring the right people, you're not firing the wrong people fast enough. You don't even know how to evaluate someone to hire them. Your culture starts to suffer, and you can have mediocre operations, but if you've got great culture, that can compensate for and fix a lot of things and result in eventually having a great better operations because you attract better people. So we're going to jump over to the next area function of the business, which is the finance and accounting. And the reason I want to go to this next is because if you have great people in your business and you're doing a great job building culture, developing leadership, but everything falls apart because you don't know what your finances are. You have the constraint of not knowing how profitable you are. A big one, and I'll touch on this when we talk about marketing and sales, is simply not having the visibility on the data around your finance and accounting to even know what you can spend. I had a conversation with one of our clients just last week where he was asking, how much can I afford to spend on marketing? So I would just walk through a few basic questions on his finances. What's your average job size? How profitable? Like, what's your gross profit? What's your net on that? What are the other costs associated to deliver and fulfill on that? And it turned out his profit margin is so low, based on what he is assuming, he can't afford to market. So now Tim, who you're going to hear from next, he's diving into the financial data to get clarity around what can we actually do and can we actually afford to invest in marketing. So Tim, I'll kick it over to you, talk through some of those finance and accounting restraints and give everyone some clarity on that.
Thanks, AJ. So when we talk finance and accounting, let's talk accounting first. AJ used the metaphor perfectly. Accounting is about where have we been? And it's not just the financial data that we are reviewing. It's the operational data. It's the marketing data. It's the human capital data. It's looking at the data and understanding what does the business do or has done, what decisions have been made. Because again, all of your decisions, whether directly or indirectly, appear in the financials in some shape or form through whether or not your revenue is growing, your costs are growing, your margins are in control. There's a lot of variance in your budget if you have a budget. And so the role of accountants, or really accounting, is to understand the transactional level of financial cash component of your business in order to depict in the financial statements, whether over a course of 12 months, a period, or over the course of the life of your the life of your business, the balance sheet, what is the health of the business from an operational standpoint and from a longevity standpoint. From there, we jump into finance. And in finance, it's identifying decisions, and not what decisions need to be made, but it's when decisions need to be made, and in informing the stakeholders, whether that be operations, whether that be HR or marketing. Again, a perfect decision that we talk about a lot is whether or not our gross margin per product or per SKU is changing again. And then the role of finance is to say, hey, if your gross margin drops below X, we need to have a conversation of why, whether or not we pull the product, or if it's above X, great, this product becomes more profitable. Let's push marketing budget to that product so that we can market more and hope that we can drive more sales into this revenue line. And so, although finance in the beginning is not a decision maker, finance's role is to inform all of the decision makers what decision points have been triggered and inform them. And so The best constraints when we talk accounting and finance, the first one is obviously not knowing your numbers, not only the financial numbers, but also the operational numbers. And one of the first conversations we have as a team whenever we jump into a client are what KPIs or what operational data that can you give us that also links in some shape or form to the financial data so that we can identify how you've made decisions in the past, because that informs us as to how you've again made your decisions, but how you make your decisions in the future until we build those tools to keep you informed from an operational report or from financial statements. Oftentimes one of our first conversations when we review the financial statements, business owners will say, well, I've never done that. And so that becomes the constraint number two, where it's we get surprised by financial expenses that we should have seen coming. Again, taxes. There are three things that are confirmed in life, and taxes are one of them. If you run a profitable business, you can have tax strategies, but you have to pay your taxes. But getting surprised by those issues is the constraint that oftentimes hurts the business the most, because it's the one thing that you can see coming, but you don't anticipate it, and it causes a cash drain in your business around April 14th. And it's always one of those things that if you don't see it coming, you can't plan for it. And it takes out a couple months worth of cash, depending on how profitable you're being. The fourth constraint, or really the third constraint that we see most often, AJ calls it the gut feeling budgeting. I call it the balance sheet or cash account budgeting, where it's I've got cash in the bank, so I'm going to spend money. But it's the saying that I'm going to run my business based off of the cash that's in my account and not based off of decisions I'm making or my forecasted budget. The purpose of your forecast or the budget itself, when it's prepared by the accountants, in the first step, your budget is just a best guess what I think is going to happen based off of my key assumptions. That's budget number one. Budget number two turns into the decision points. If this happens, I can do X, Y, or Z. And now you have key assumptions in your business so that as key leaders in your organization, you can identify when these assumptions fail. I immediately sit down and figure out what changes in my forecast. And so again, forecast number one, when you first start to do it, it's muscle memory. It's what do I think is going to happen and how much variance do I have? How well do I understand my business so that I can anticipate what's going to happen? Budget number two, when you get really comfortable with the budget process number one, is now decision points. Great. Now I can have a little bit more fluidity in my budget because I know that I'm not after the numbers that are in the budget, but I'm after the key assumptions. The fourth constraint is often the one that we have the most time teaching business owners how to overcome, and it's having confidence with the financial data and being comfortable with the numbers in the financials. Again, you have a growing profitable business, you have to get comfortable with the numbers growing fast, because your cash account, again, if you're pushing for growth, you have to have 10% of your growth target in cash at any time, because that's just a common rule where it's okay, I have to be able to afford my growth before it actually happens, because otherwise I have to leverage my debt position in order to cause growth in the business. And that causes you to have unforeseen expenses, interest in your business that if not planned for appropriately, you risk being over or really undercapitalized in cash and overburdened from a leverage standpoint. And then you'll have a harder time even getting access to debt. AJ, did that answer all of the questions we kind of want to walk through? I think you're muted again.
Yeah, you touched on that last one that I was going to go to. The idea for a lot of business owners is either I want to keep as much money as possible, or to make as much money as possible, and both of those require actually knowing how much is coming in versus what's going out, and what percentage of a job that you do is labor, and knowing all of those numbers is super important. And I the more when so for all of you watching, Tim and I have a monthly meeting where we'll just talk strategy and go through the numbers, the finances, and every month as well we'll do with our entire team, our leadership team, will do a financial review where Tim and then Heather, who's our controller, will present where we're at financially, what our targets are, what we need to accomplish. And I personally have always hated, I remember in high school learning how to balance a checkbook. Freaking hated it. I did not enjoy that class, but it was necessary. Now I enjoy all of those things. I enjoy looking at spreadsheets. I enjoy the numbers and diving into it more and learning more because it makes business a game. It's a game of leverage. And most business owners, and I know Tim would agree, and maybe even add some additional insight, most business owners don't approach business as leveraging money. It's about making money. And if they're really tight fisted, you're a bit of a Scrooge. It's about keeping money. But keeping and saving money is a great way to grow broke, just slower than spending money too fast. You spend fast, you go broke fast. You save and you spend slow, you go broke slow. Either way, you go broke. The game is about leveraging money, leveraging cash. If you're going to take on debt, leveraging it the right way. Tim, any additional insights on that? Because I that's one of the things about business that I love the most. Outside of marketing and the creating the great experience for our clients, I love the game of how do we leverage and move this.
Yeah, so you hit on some of it. In fact, leverage could be its own topic for an hour and a half or 2 hours. As entrepreneurs, we create value by leveraging resources that we have access to. In your business, you have in most businesses you have four types of leverage. You have hard leverage, your cash. So that's your hard capital. Again, you have cash, you have access to debt, you have credit cards, you have long-term loans. So again, when you think about that, it's how do I leverage the financial instruments in my business? Then of course you have the soft capital element in your business. That's your people. That's the knowledge that your people have. It's the knowledge that inherently is unique to your own business. And then of course you have your trade capital where it's this is the products, these are the equipments I have in my business. And so when we look at leverage, and really as entrepreneurs, when you look at your business as a process, it's understanding or really thinking about how do I create value? I pay an employee $20 an hour so that I can charge a client $100 an hour in order to make that $80 margin in the labor leverage. And then in order to equip the labor leverage, I have to have $10 of equipment that's financed over 2 years to buy that piece of equipment per hour. And so it's understanding how the mechanical elements of your business create value. And ultimately it's understanding what my cash conversion cycle is. When we say, okay, I'm going to spend $10 in marketing, how long does it take for me to recoup that? And I'm now profitable on this relationship that the marketing efforts have resulted in that allow me to leverage not only the marketing spend, but also the labor spend and also the equipment spend in order to have at the end of a 12-month period, $10 of profit per hour of leverage. And now it's a conversation with your HR stakeholders of when is it time to recruit? And you jump back to the operational conversations and say, what is the capacity? If I hire someone, I am introducing 2,000 hours of capacity to my business. When is the time that I need to hire someone else? And it's all about decision points. So back to you, AJ, but leverage is my favorite word.
That is a word of the day. I remember watching Sesame Street as a kid, and there's always a word of the day. Today's word is leverage. So Elmo likes money. All right. So now we're going to shift to one of my favorite topics, aside from creating leverage, is marketing and sales. This is typically where most business owners come to us where there's a crisis or there's the biggest pain point, and it's typically the most obvious constraint, but it's kind of a catch-22. It's the most obvious constraint aside from finance, but it's usually the go-to for how do we fix the problems, but at the same time, it's the most misunderstood. Or I should say, maybe it's not the misunderstood. That would probably be finance is the most misunderstood. Marketing is just the least understood because most business owners don't know how it works. And most, frankly, most marketers and marketing agencies don't know how it works. So I'm going to give you some clarity here. There's four things that marketing needs to be. And if you don't have these four things, you have a constraint in marketing and sales. So the first is it's measurable. Most business owners that we engage with, and we have a full agency team that runs all their paid marketing and does all the branding, can do all of those things. One of the first things we do is we look at the data, and I'm reviewing the data to look at what has marketing accomplished. And really the first question before I even ask what has marketing accomplished, I'm asking, do we have enough data to know that marketing is even working? One of our clients, we're in the process of firing the agency that they have been working with prior to engaging with us um, this past month, because they've been running an ad for over 12 months and it's never been optimized. It's never been changed. It's not even being tracked. So they've been spending money on this single Facebook ad, which in and of itself, running a single Facebook ad for a home services business makes no sense. But they don't know. They just know we need to do something. And that's fine. If that's where you're at and you are paying for marketing, you're paying for SEO, you're just trying to get something going, that's okay. But you're likely all you're doing is burning money, spending thousands of dollars a month, even if it's 2,000 or 5,000, whatever it is. Hopefully not more than that. If you're spending more than $2,000 to $3,000 and you don't have certainty that it's working, you've got a real problem. That's a lot of cash to burn. Any amount is too much to burn, but it needs to be measurable. You need to have it all tracked, whether you're running your marketing yourself or you have an agency running it. If you don't know how many leads, how many clicks, what's the cost per lead, how many of those leads are not only marketing qualified, meaning that is the person that we are marketing to, that we're trying to attract, and they're sales qualified, they are the person we're trying to attract, they fit the persona, and they're in a buying cycle. If you don't have all of that data, you've got a problem. It's a constraint. The second thing that marketing needs to be is it needs to be profitable. And the reason I start with measurable is because if it's not measurable, you don't know if it's profitable. At the very basic level, if you know you're spending $5,000 a month on marketing between ad spend and agency fees, and you should never be tracking just ROAS. Agencies love to talk about ROAS because they know that that's the only number that they can track. But a good agency, our team, looks at ROI. What's the return on the ad spend? We spent $1, we made $4. And then what's the ROI? What's the profitability? How much does it cost you to deliver on fulfillment, so that on the back end you're actually making money? So we need to have it measurable so that we can know if it's profitable. Not just ROAS, we want a good return. In the home services space, you should be seeing at least a 3 to 4x return. Anything lower than that is a sign that it's not performing well enough. Now, it'll ebb and flow. We have that with clients as well, seasonality, things like that. But we want to see good performance. So it needs to be measurable so that we know if it's profitable. Because if it's not profitable, then the third thing, it's not sustainable. And sustainable and also scalable. Sustainable meaning we can continue doing this without just burning money. And if it's not sustainable, then it's not scalable. If it's not making money back, you're not spending $1 to make $4. Not only can you not sustain it, because sustainability really just has to do with how much money you have before you run out, but it can't scale because scaling it requires spending more. Meaning, when we work with a client, we typically will start with a minimum budget depending on their size. But if they're a couple million a year and we're just starting paid marketing, we'll start with a $2,000 to $3,000 budget just for the ad spend. We want to scale that up to 5, and then 7,500, and then 10. We want to scale it up as high as we can, because as long as we maintain measurable profitability, we know that spending X number of dollars brings in X amount of revenue. So it's measurable, it's profitable, it's sustainable and scalable. I'll put those two together. And then finally, it is predictable. That's the last one. If you can't measure it, if it's not profitable, if it's not sustainable and scalable, then it's not predictable either. And that is the whole goal of marketing and sales is to predictably generate leads on the marketing side and predictably convert those leads into clients, customers, and sales and revenue profitably on the sales side. If you can't predict your growth if the source of growth, leads, customers, revenue, sales, is not predictable. So many business owners that we've worked with, they have targets, or they've been working with the previous consulting firm that set these massive targets that were just pulled out of the air. Like it didn't come from anywhere. It was just, what number makes you excited and scares you a little bit? Cool, let's go with that number. But there was no reverse engineering to identify what will it actually take. To put it in real simple terms, and Tim, feel free to clarify on this, because I'm going to give the really simple version of it. If you want to make $10 million and you know that your profit in your business is 30%, that means you're going to spend 7 to make 10. to put it in context. So if you say you want to go from a $2 million business to a $20 million business in the next 12 months, well, what's your profit? And we're not even accounting for how much it could diminish based on scaling, because things get more inefficient if you don't scale them correctly. You're going to have to spend 18 to make 20. Just really simple view. Tim, you want to add anything to that?
No, that's accurate. Again, it's also understanding that through leverage and efficiencies in the business, you can hopefully improve your profit margins through the managed growth of fixed costs. But very believe that's accurate math.
So, yeah, and then managing your fixed costs. So it's a whole chess game on the financial side, which I love, and we teach that to our clients because our goal is to not we scale businesses by helping business owners learn how to operate at a higher level and implement the what we call the eight-figure frameworks, which we implement to every business to get to their first $10 million or their next 10 million in growth in 24 months or so. So marketing has to be those four things: measurable, profitable, sustainable, and scalable, and then predictable. So simple. If you can't say with certainty you have all those things, you know how many leads are coming in, what they're costing you, how much profit you have after you've spent money on marketing, then marketing is a constraint for you. So I want you to ask yourself this question. All of those four things that I mentioned: measurable, profitable, sustainable, scalable, and predictable, those are all indicators, if you have those, that you have a system. You have a system that predictably brings in the right clients even when you're not involved. And that's the key. You shouldn't be chasing down clients. They should be chasing you. They should be coming to you. You should be waking up every day and there's more clients, there's more sales, there's more leads, there's more revenue, there's more profit. Your business is growing, because until that point, you can't take a vacation and actually relax, because the whole time you're still working, wondering how much chaos am I coming back to when I get back from vacation. And then you're not present with the family. And one of our really core value for us, not one of our core values, but a value for us with our clients, is we want to show business owners how to scale their business without sacrificing what matters most: their family, their health, their sanity. You should be able to go on a vacation, enjoy it, not even think about work, and then come back to find that the business grew even more so without you. So we talked through people, we talked through finance and accounting, we talked through marketing and sales. The way we structure businesses, as far as departments, the very tip of the spear that really is a pervading function throughout all the business functions is operations. And operations really encapsulates all of the business functions, which is why we're going to talk about it last, because every function in the business touches operations. It has its own level and focus of operations that need to be dialed in, need to be optimized. So a few things to look at in terms of your operations, just a few signs that you might have a constraint there. Inconsistent delivery and quality. Now, this depends on what type of business you're in. We work with a lot of service-based businesses, a lot of home services. So the deliverability, the quality, the time frame of that, if it's varying all over the place, if there is inconsistent quality, bottlenecks in daily workflows, things are breaking down from sales from estimate to proposal to sales to going to the construction side, the follow-up with the customer, your constant firefighting. This is a big one for most business owners. Every day you're fielding calls from your team, or your team is coming to you with another fire. This thing broke down, the forklift broke, and the backup forklift broke, and this person's out, and we don't have a replacement. We're able to turn away calls because we don't have enough techs on the team. Things like that. This is one of the primary things that keeps businesses from growing. We're working with one of our clients now to grow their business. We'll double their business this year from last year, and last year we grew the business by about 50%. 2024 versus 2023. This year will double what they did in 2023 or in 2024. And the reason why is we now have predictability. We can now pull the levers, and at the moment, we've got marketing campaigns going, it's performing. They're turning away work because there aren't enough techs. But that's okay because we're in the process of building out the team. So we're always going to have some inefficiencies. And this is why it's a game of leverage. We will continue pushing marketing, even though we're turning work away. We're not going to dial it down because we want to keep the consistency and then build the team to handle that. And then we keep pushing with the marketing and the sales, and then we grow the team into the success that we're having. So there's a whole strategy and approach to that. And then another signal that you have constraints in operations is that you have a team that doesn't follow through or even follow the systems at all. So this comes down to documented processes. It comes down to you as the founder and owner handling too much. You've got your hands in too many things. I want to kick it over to Tim or Kirk to speak to within their functions any other things related to operations. I kind of gave a broad overview of it. I don't know who's gonna tag in. Okay, Kirk's gonna tag in.
Yeah, I mean, as far as operations go and how it relates to your people, it I always go back to you can't get somebody to do something that you haven't done, or you don't have at least a working knowledge of how it works. So I I, I could probably fill a book of all the stories of people that are frustrated with uh, team members that they've brought on to fix a problem that they don't even know what the problem is or can give direction on how to fix it. So I would say, you know, as far as the people issue, sometimes it's a matter of not knowing how to direct them, but sometimes it's a matter of oversubscribing to the problem. Um, we've had examples in the past of um, people overhiring for a role or a perceived challenge, only to find themselves laying those same people off, 90, 180, 360 days later. And they do it under the vein of forward investing into this growth strategy, but their strategy is less of a strategy and more of an investment in hope that the business will grow. And so they they do it in these good intentions, false pretenses type of deal. And so we have found ourselves coming into businesses where they will have let's say, a $4 million business that they've got just shy of 40 employees. And you can't be profitable in that equation ever. And I would defer to Tim on the math of that, but I can very quickly assess whether or not you have a right size team just based on revenue per employee.
Yeah, 100%. I think from a accounting and finance component within HR or within operations, operations is how we execute. And as we look at the execution of the business, as we kind of talked about earlier, finance finds the decision points, but operations decides what to do. And we look for ways to make the best informed decisions for all parties involved. And it comes down to where are the constraints and what are we trying to change. But I'll kick it back to AJ and we can kind of wrap up.
Yeah, so we covered quite a bit as far as constraints, and hopefully this gives you a lot of clarity. This is what we do every single week. If this is the first time that you're watching one of these business builders episodes, so make sure you go to the description, subscribe, like this video if you found value, share it with a fellow business owner, and then go to the description and two things. You'll find the link for the assessment that we've created for you as a free resource. Download that, fill it out, and then also um, you want to make sure to sign up for Business Builders. That way you get notifications every week, and you'll get the invite because I have launched another free resource because part of our mission is to impact 10,000 business owners this year. And so what we've done is we did something a little crazy. We have so much content and we've worked with so many businesses, thousands, and actually scaling businesses, not just coaching and consulting, but getting in there and showing business owners how to build businesses that can scale to 8 and 9 figures. And we've done it many, many times. So there's so much that as a business owner, you have to navigate through. Like, where do you go? There's all these different resources and gurus and people who sell big companies. We keep it really simple because we are business owners. All True Partners is the firm that we run, but it's not the first business any of us have had. We've all been business owners outside of that. And now with business owners, we collectively scale businesses. And one of the things that we've done as an effort to provide more resources and more value for business owners is we recently, at the time of recording this video, launched a free community. And it's more than just a community. What we've done is we've launched our Build to Scale school community. And you'll see some of the testimonies from our clients, kind of the growth that we've helped create for clients within the home services and service based space. This is brand new, but in here, we've taken equivalent from, and we've seen lots of courses and programs on business growth that are $2,000, $5,000. We've taken the equivalent of probably a $3,000 to $5,000 program and dropped it in here at no cost for the first 100 members. So go to the link in the description, click that, go check it out, watch the testimonials. You can get in there. There's no cost. There are a ton of additional trainings that are coming. But in here, you have a ton of training that you can dive into that goes deeper into some of the things we talked about today, in addition to a lot more to help you really scale and grow your business. So we appreciate you guys. Go to the link, check it out, check out the group, drop a comment, drop a question, and we'll see you on the next episode of Business Builders.